Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the lunch. And let's take a look at. That's not my presentation. That was my colleague's presentation. I would like to speak about something a little bit different, but there is a quite overlap. So if you have seen my colleague's presentation before, he was introducing our routers a little bit, and I will be speaking more about our routers, and I will also touch a little bit of what he spoke about. He spoke about our security program that we have, and I will be just touching that in my presentation. So, okay, I will start without the slides. And during the presentation, maybe they will appear. Who am I and who we are and what we do? We are part of CZNIC, which is a Czech top-level domain registry. And how did we get to making wireless routers? Cool. Sorry for the delay. So how did we get to the router making business? Basically, we are Czech top-level domain registry, so we are taking care of .cz. Therefore, we get the money for every domain sold. So to be a good guys, we are run as a non-profit, and we try to contribute every bug that we get. We try to contribute it to better the internet and better the world. So we do a lot of open source development. For example, you might have heard about BERT routing daemon. It's a BGP daemon that is powering more than half of the internet. That's something that we are developing and maintaining. Apart from that, we are developing and maintaining not DNS authoritative and authoritative server and DNS resolver. And apart from that, since we are skilled IT guys, we are actually also, we have a department that is Czech National Security Team. And that's actually where this idea of the router comes from. Currently we are also making routers for some reason that I will disclose in a moment. We started with one big question. We know that if you have a server, there is plenty of attacks coming on your server. Every day you see plenty of people trying to guess your passwords, trying to exploit well-known vulnerabilities and stuff like that. But what about the average users of the internet? Average home users? They are not advertising their IP addresses anywhere. They don't have fancy domain names. They don't have advertisements that are trying to gather the traffic. Is somebody attacking them? How often? How is it relevant? How sophisticated those attacks are? And how does it look like? Our colleagues in the security team were really interested in finding out what's happening at the endpoints. So we came up with a plan. We decided that we will make security probe. This is how our security probe looked like. It had some antennas and multiple Ethernet ports. We wanted for people to put it as close to the internet as possible, so it would be their main connectivity device. And we gave it away for free in Czech Republic in exchange that people will actually use it as their primary means of connection, and they will allow us to gather the information about attacks targeting them. So we implemented some kind of honeypots. We scraped the firewall logs, collect all these informations, evaluated them, and created a centrally controlled blacklist that not only gathered information about the attackers, but also actively updated firewalls of those devices to prevent further attacks. And we provided copy of all data to those security guys that then went and investigated in deep what's going on and wrote articles about behavior of those attackers, and even managed to find some new attack vectors that were spreading on the internet. So that's the device that we did. And they were going to conferences and talking about what they found and how they found it. Since we are kind of open source company, our way of doing things was obviously open source. We made sure that the hardware had enough resources to survive to the future, so we can extend it in future with additional services, additional data collection, additional traps for the attackers, but also with additional software to make it usable for the users to motivate them to contribute. We obviously picked open source Linux distribution to run on top of it. Since we are doing some hardware, it makes sense that it's yours, so we give you a root account. That goes without saying, at least it should. And we made sure that our devices are sustainable, so we make sure that we have a way how to automatically upgrade them, because it's not easy if you have to log into your router every other month, check whether there is a new software update. Sometimes it's even hard to refresh it and update it and so and so. So we decided to make it as simple as possible and make it update seamlessly by default. And since we are DNS company, we also enabled DNSSEC validation by default on the routers to enhance security a little bit. And we added a few extra security features. So that's what we did even with our first security probe that somehow accidentally was also cool wireless router. And when our colleagues were going to the conferences and talking about the device that got them the data to do research on, they frequently got a question whether the visitors of the conference actually can get the device because it sounds cool, right? So in the end, we decided to check the market, whether it is actually a viable solution. So we created something that people can buy in retail. And we made an Indiegogo campaign to verify whether our feeling that it might be interesting for not just few geeks, but to generic public. And we succeeded. We made a very successful campaign. And Turris Omnia is in retail since then. And it's even nowadays, it's still relevant because we made sure that it was powerful enough to work even in the future and to be able to replace Wi-Fi cards and stuff like that. And even our oldest routers, the blue ones that I showed on the first slide, they are still receiving regular updates, not only security ones, but feature ones as well. And it's almost a decade ago since we started with that. So, to the main topic, why did we choose open source? Well, I don't have to tell you here that there is actually no other way how to do software development nowadays. There are some companies still trying to do it otherwise, but if you are doing something that at least few people in the world are doing, then it makes sense to work together than against each other. But in general, it provides a really easy way how to get started. You have plenty of options to choose from, and you can even have multiple competing solutions for one thing. So you can pick up what works best for you, and you do just the most important part, the integration and making it fit all together and making it work for your users the best way it can. And there are other potential advantages, like people can contribute whatever they want, they can fix what's broken, they can add additional software and stuff like that. You all understand that, right? There are also some downsides. There is plenty of software to integrate, so people want everything. And if there is a text editor that 3 people in the world use, and one of them is your user, then he will really complain, how is it possible that you don't support their software and support this Vim guy that nobody ever heard about? So that's one of the little pains that you get. When you give people root accounts, like we do, and which is the reasonable way how to do stuff, people get creative. And they devise really crazy setups, and they expect them to work. And sometimes it works by accident. And then something updates and it no longer works. But yeah, getting to the root of the problem might be hard. And sometimes people even refuse to accept that that they set up shouldn't work, that it should never work. And yeah. And there's also downside for us as not only for our users and our support guys, but also for us as a developers. We depend on software that we don't fully control, and that makes their own decision and goes in their own way. But there's actually a fix for that. When you contribute, you can change the direction, and you can make sure that the software is evolving in the way that you want it to. And if everything fails, there are multiple competing projects, and in worst case, you can fork it and start the competing project. So that was some general introduction in how do we do stuff, and now I would like to talk about few pieces of software that actually enabled us to make our router what it is today. One basic thing that we use is OpenWRT. It's a Linux distribution for wireless routers. And it's really great that it's optimized for routers, so it has even its own web interface where you can set up quite a lot, and it's really powerful and tries to simplify things for advanced users, how to do some advanced setups. Where it doesn't really fit with our hardware is that it's optimized for small devices. Like one of the hard requirements that is there nowadays is that you have to have 4 megs of storage and 32 megs of RAM. And it's not really recommended, but still doable. We have 8 gigs of storage and 2 gigs of RAM, so we are a little bit different. So we modify it slightly. We have what we call TurrisOS. It's based on OpenWRT, but we created our own web user interface that is much more simple. You cannot do everything that you can do in Lucy, but we believe it's much easier to understand it if you are trying to set up something. And it actually hides quite some complexity in background. So yeah, you use one click to create a guest network, and it hides that underneath you need to do some additional bridge, some extra SSDs, some separated network space and stuff like that. You just want high-level functionality. You click in our web interface, and it will get propagated. And if you want to play with it a little bit more, you go to Lucy and check what has been done and modify it. That's fine. Other thing that we modified is updating and upgrade path. As I said, we are trying to make sure that there is always simple and automatic and smooth way how to upgrade from one version to another. And also, we are not using highly compressed images as OpenWRT. We don't have a lack of free space. We are using normal Btrfs file system. I will speak about it a little bit more later. And we use ordinary Linux packages. So we are installing on per package basis, and we are also upgrading on per package basis. So we had to write our own software that will support that, because in OpenWRT, your use case is quite different. You have a highly compressed root file system where you have almost everything, and you need to just add one or two packages. But if you try to use OPKG to update the whole system, you run into quite some troubles over the way. And we want to make sure that if it updates, it succeeds, and it doesn't get stuck halfway through. And yeah, we do few integration bits. We integrate other software. This is how our web user interface looks like. Yeah, I actually like it, and it looks nice. I should have a Lucy screenshot here as well for comparison. But yeah, I didn't realize that beforehand. One of the things that I was talking about is Btrfs. That's our file system of choice, because it's the coolest file system out there in Linux, as of now, still. And one of the cool features that it brings is snapshots. So we use them quite heavily. Before every update, we do snapshot. Before every installation, we do snapshot. Once a week, we do snapshot. And you can make snapshots manually as well. I guess I should speed up. And we made sure that we have a web user interface that you can use to manage those snapshots, revert to the previous state, delete them, create them, and stuff like that. You can actually revert to the previous snapshot by pressing reset button and holding it long enough. Other interesting part that we have is OpenVPN integration. If you ever set up OpenVPN, you know that the hardest part is maintaining certification authority. Not because it's hard, but because it's not technologically hard. It's just, yeah, I don't know how to say it politely. But it brings you a lot of pain to maintain all those certificates in a sane way. So we made a nice web interface where you can just click, and in background, it will do all the open source stuff that you would expect. It runs OpenSSL, creates certification authority, creates configuration files for your OpenVPN, embeds the certificate, so you just download it from the web, put it into your mobile, and you can connect to your router. We also make sure that we integrate OpenVPN client, so you can connect your router to internet through some VPN connection. Other software that we integrated is NextCloud. We have enough resources to run that. Barely, but we have. So you can plug in external hard drive, and with few clicks, again, it will create your MySQL database, configure your web server, and prepare everything, and it will be just another application in your user interface that you can use. And last thing that we are working on right now is integrating snort, because we care about security. We are trying to make sure that people can easily run IDS on their router, download some rule set, and get notification when something suspicious is happening. So thank you for your attention, and if you want, we have a booth just outside of this room, and there are a few interesting links that you might want to check, especially the last one that's data from our security program, and you can check where the attackers are coming from, what services are the most popular, and so on and so on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michal. And does anyone have a question? Yeah? Okay. So?
Yeah, he was waving, and I do have a question. So you said that this whole thing started by someone asking for that cool device to be bought.
Sorry?
You said that the whole thing started by people asking you if they can buy the device. Now I want to turn it around. What if I would want to buy the whole system, but I want to use it on my old PCs? Because I have a lot of those lying around and I don't use them. But why?
You don't need to buy it. It's open source.
But I would want to get support, and that's not free. So you're selling the router and giving support for the OS on the router, but I would like the OS, and I want to run it on other things with your support. Have you ever thought about that model?
We didn't have a customer asking for that yet, but you can be first.
Yep, I just did.
Yeah, well, basic support, like, hey, this doesn't work.
RTFM.
We are open source developers, all of us.
Yeah, RTFM. Yeah.
So we can fix some bugs easily, even without support, if you don't have deadlines and SLAs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. If you want to have hard support and deadlines and SLAs and stuff like that, and providing binary and testing your hardware setup, then we can talk. I have a business card of our business manager. So.
Oh, but have you tried running the whole OS on like an x86 normal computers?
We tried it in some containers, and it worked. OpenWRT support x86, and there is nothing that should be architecture specific.
That's cool. Yeah.
One thing that there are some small bits and pieces, like we get information about Ethernet ports from device tree.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that needs working out.
That might need some tweaks, but I think there is some fallback. Cool. So I'm not sure how well the fallback will work for your setup, but that's something that needs to be tested and figured out.
Cool. But there's no like underlying problem with it, so we are not solely relying on some hardware you put in there.
No.
No. Yeah.
We can port it anywhere we need, but.
Yeah, but you didn't need to. Yeah, thanks. That was one question. The other question I was thinking about is how much. Okay, how much did the core architecture of the router change through 10 years? Like, is it still the same PPC processor with 2 gigabytes of RAM?
No. The Omnia that I shown, the silver one, it's ARMv7, and the newest thing that we have is TurrisMox. It's ARMv8.
Yeah.
And the next device will probably be ARMv8 as well.
Yeah. Right, so it's slowly developing. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If you want my business colleague's card, I have it.
Okay, and it seems we are out of time, so please ask Michal at the booth.
Thank you for your attention.